Hi, and welcome back to the second volume of Faculty in Focus, where we blur the lines between the work done by Ohio State Lima faculty and the greater Allen County community. I'm your host, Maggie Young, and throughout Faculty in Focus, we will explore Ohio State Lima faculty interests and how they relate to the greater Allen County region. For our second volume of Faculty in Focus, we decided to talk about faculty firsts. There's so much excitement and newness with the start of a new school year. I thought it might be interesting to look at how our faculty developed their teaching and research skills. Today, we have Dr. Leah Herner-Patnode, an associate professor of special education. She's going to chat with us about her development as a researcher examining education of pre-service teachers. Leah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I want to get started today just by asking you about when you got interested in the research process.
As an undergrad at Bowling Green State University, I had the opportunity to work with a professor in a women's literature class. And she sent me on, at the time, I didn't even know the words. So I felt like I was going on a scavenger hunt in the library for some books for her. And it was fascinating to be able to find things. And mind you, this was when you used the real card catalog and you had to actually look for these things. And it was fascinating. It was interesting. And I gathered information and read things, and I was able to form a hypothesis and find information to back up my research. And so that started me on the road as an undergrad. And then when I got my master's degree, I was focused on administration. And I wasn't as excited I did research papers, but not really projects. So I started talking to one of the professors when I was doing I was getting a gifted credential added to my license. And she said, well, we have this doctoral program and you could research gifted education and learning disabilities and be part of the special education doctoral program. And I said, well, that sounds kind of interesting. So I jumped into that, and she became my mentor and led me down the road through many research projects and presentations. And as a matter of fact, in 2 weeks, I'm going back to Las Vegas, and I'm going to have lunch with her, and it will be 21 years since I finished my dissertation under her and learned about research.
Oh, amazing. So let's talk about that first, maybe a first independent research project. When did that happen, and what were you studying, and who were you researching, or who was involved in that process?
So I was very interested, because I was currently a public school teacher, in how public school teachers use research. So we're told that there's all this great research out there, but as a person that was working every day in the classroom, I was only using research because I was taking these college classes and they were asking me questions and I was reading it. My colleagues weren't necessarily sitting around and saying, did you see that great article in the last, Kaplan magazine? No, we didn't have those conversations. But from time to time, we did have concentrated professional development time. And so sometimes we had presenters that wove in research. So I'm not saying that my colleagues were ignorant of research, it's just they didn't necessarily have a concentrated time. So my idea was, if we actually used our professional development time, but we did it in a way that was a little bit more unique. So, forever people have really been fascinated by book clubs. So I said, what if we had like a teacher discussion club, and it would be about research articles that were topics that were really of interest to us. For example, if you had somebody that was a struggling reader and you wanted to know the latest research on phonics and how to employ that in a second grade classroom, and there was 3 other people that were kind of interested in that, it kind of gave you accountability. Like, I have to read this article because tomorrow during lunch, during our time, we're going to get together and we're going to have our kind of like book group. But in this case, it was article group. So it was quick read. It wasn't like you were reading like a novel and then discussing it. You could read some research articles based on the topic that interested you and then come back and talk about it with your peers. And so that was my first independent-led research, where I was giving them the opportunity. I led that, and I was giving others the opportunity to investigate something that interested them. And then we did kind of a pre and post about, has your knowledge level risen? are you able to actually apply this practically to your life? So that was my first real project.
So then what did you find? Because I think this is so fascinating. We have so many teachers in our area who are trying to do the best that they can for our students in an arguably very challenging time period. So what did you find out?
Well, not surprisingly, people that got to pick their own topic of research gained much greater knowledge than the people that had to go and sit and listen to, a prescribed sort of, this is what the district is telling you need to listen to this week. And so obviously, I should say obviously, but the findings were that there was a perception, and then again, almost like a little pre-post test that showed greater knowledge gain for those people that got to pick the research areas in which they got to do their own reading and do their own research.
And did you find that there was a significant kind of change in whether or not they felt they could apply that research into their day-to-day teaching?
Yes, like a year later, kind of revisiting session, so to speak.
Yeah.
Everybody said that they'd applied, and it varied, but like minimally, at least a couple of things they had applied to their daily work. Some people had really switched around a lot of their instruction based on it, but it minimally at least applied some things to their daily work, which of course benefited students.
Right. All right. So then what happened next in your research? Did you jump into like your next project? Was it related or not related?
Well, to a certain degree. So I stopped teaching public school, and I took a job after I got my doctorate. I took a job in California. And so I was working in a very small department. It was only myself and one other person were the special education teachers. So I naturally gravitated towards other people in the education department. And they were starting to investigate how we could best instruct future teachers so that they would have the skills to continue utilizing research. So the idea was we help them create portfolios, we help them understand research. So again, the thought would be that they would be good consumers of research when they got to the classroom, and that would again trickle down to their students. So it was kind of a gradual, but it still linked sort of research agenda. And again, we were at the time fairly cutting edge because not everybody was doing electronics like they are doing now. So, I mean, think 20 years ago. So we were doing electronic portfolios in my group. We were some of the first people to publish about electronic portfolios for pre-service teachers. And again, the whole point being not just that it was like, oh, it's fun, let's put our stuff in here. It was that you could go back and revisit that as professional. Like, here's where I put important articles and information that I want to go back and review. Like if I'm stuck on a particular topic, if I need some help with science, education, those kind of things.
So it's developing their own kind of resource materials that they can then use to help them when they get stuck or to kind of figure out where they need to look next.
Exactly.
Awesome. So then thinking about just the few years that have elapsed since, you finished your doctoral work, have your research interests changed?
Well, they've changed to a degree because in some ways it's a place-bound thing. So wherever you go, there's new and interesting things to explore. So when I came to the Ohio State University at Lima, I had the chance again to work with really awesome colleagues whose focus was to make sure that we're training the best pre-service teachers to be part of the surrounding community. So we want to make sure that the people coming out of our program have the top-notch skills to educate the students in the area. So again, naturally, we're trying to find the best techniques to do this. And so some of my research has tended towards, sticking with that. How do you help them learn to be good consumers of research? But then it's altered a little bit. As everybody grows as a person and understands more about their environment, so do my students and so do myself. So my focus over the years has switched to how do we differentiate instruction so that it best helps all students in the classroom. And in the same manner, are we being culturally responsive educators? So what am I doing to help my pre-service teachers become culturally responsive educators? And just responsive educators, period. So this means becoming good consumers of research. This means actually applying techniques that you have learned in the classroom and actually getting to know your students and be invested in your students. So that's where the research has evolved over time to more of a focus on what specific skills can I give them so that they have the thought process necessary, the disposition necessary to be an educator in today's schools, which are obviously hugely challenging. Even before pandemic times, it was hugely challenging to be in the trenches every day.
Absolutely. Mad respect for anyone who's teaching K-12 or anyone who's teaching. It's a very challenging but extremely rewarding profession, but emphasis on extremely challenging. So just to kind of take it back full circle, what advice do you have for either aspiring researchers or for aspiring teachers?
Well, I would say one piece of advice that would be good for both is to find a good mentor. My major professor on my dissertation has been a continued lifelong mentor. She still connects with me on a regular basis and asks me if I want to edit for a journal, if I know of any job openings in the area for other people, and to connect me with other people in my doctoral program. Well, you know somebody's doing similar research to you over at Vanderbilt University, so maybe you want to touch base with her. And the same thing, that's what, if you find a good mentor in the school district, somebody that teaches the way that you want to teach, that you want to aspire to like this person, not just that their kids might score well on tests, but the students in that room seem to learn. They really seem to enjoy coming into that teacher's classroom. They really seem to get something out of it and learn something from being with him or her. Then that's the person I would suggest they align themselves with. Mentorship is, I think, key. So that would be my first huge piece of advice. And the second is, it's easier now than it used to be, but it's still challenging to find good best practice research source material. I mean, you can Google anything, but to really look and make sure the source is appropriate. But to try to stay up on the latest research. And what are we saying right now about the best ways to teach children in a responsive manner? And just making sure you avail yourselves of the most current research. If you're still doing the same lesson plans you were doing 5 years ago, then you aren't looking at what's out there now, because there's always something new and unique. I do not teach the same way I taught 5 years ago to my university students. So I'm hoping that people continue to evolve, and that would be my second big piece of advice, is find a source and then evolve in your own teaching process.
And so where might be some good places to start that process? Maybe we have some viewers out there who are thinking, well, I really should kind of take a peek at some of this latest and greatest research that's out there. Where might you suggest that they go first to at least get started?
Well, one of the things is professional organizations. So I'm a member of several of those. So whatever speaks to you, for example, I'm a member of Council of Exceptional Children, which is the largest special education organization, not surprisingly. But then there's small organizations like Council of Learning Disabilities. If you work with students that have learning disabilities, you might want to focus on that. The national educators for English, science, math, like if there's a subject area, and there's a lot of Ohio chapters. There's like an Ohio chapter of teachers of mathematics. And so if you start there, then you're going to like-minded colleagues that say, here's the latest research. Also, sometimes you can attend some fun conferences and you get to network with people and learn what they're doing and see what they're doing. And this can be virtually or in person these days, but avail yourselves of those kind of opportunities. And of course, if you're a grad of The Ohio State University, you have access to our stellar electronic library that anyone can access with all the greatest and latest of the educational journals.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That's so helpful. I'm just so glad that you were able to join us for this episode of Faculty in Focus. Leah, I want to say congratulations for joining the select group of OSU Lima faculty invited to the Mug Club as part of our focus on faculty scholarship, both inside and outside of the classroom. For all of you watching at home, be sure to check out our other episodes of Faculty in Focus available on the Ohio State Lima YouTube channel. From all of us here at OSU Lima, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Faculty in Focus. Until next time.